Good afternoon and welcome to the National Capital Planning Commission's June 5th, 2025 open meeting. First, Secretary Huddle-Cox, can you please take the roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Cozart.
Here.
Commissioner Stidham.
Here.
Commissioner Argo.
Here.
Vice Chair Hewlett.
Here.
Chair Goodman.
Here.
Commissioner Tunstall-Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Dixon.
Here.
Commissioner Cash.
Here.
Commissioner McGowan.
Present.
Marcel Acosta, Executive Director, and Diane Sullivan, Director of the current Planning Division, are also in the meeting.
Wonderful. Noting the presence of a quorum, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today's meeting is live streamed and will be available in a few days as a video on our NCPC website. And if there's no objection, the agenda as posted is adopted and is the order of business. Would you please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda item number 2 is report of the chair. And I'd just like to say that first, I have acted on a delegated action that took place this month pursuant to the delegations of authority adopted by the Commission on March 6, 2025. I approve the transfer of jurisdiction of lands from the National Park Service to the District of Columbia for a portion of Reservation 360 at Francis Field located in Northwest Washington, D.C. The transfer will promote expanded recreational and educational opportunities through the improvement of the existing recreational facilities and programming at Francis Dog Park, the Francis Pool, and the basketball and tennis courts. This transfer will also support the use of the outdoor space in the recreational field location of the Francis Stevens School. And second, I have the pleasure of announcing yet another retirement. Michael Sherman's retirement this month is happening, and Michael has been an instrumental part of this agency for 28 years. He has first started as an intern with NCPC in 1991, and he later joined the agency in 1997 as a Geographic Information Systems Manager. Michael is best known for his 15 years as NCPC's Policy and Research Division Director, where he led the team that worked on the Comprehensive Plan, the Federal Capital Improvements Program, Commemoration, and many other special initiatives that sought to protect and enhance federal assets and cultural and natural resources in the nation's capital. He worked on many high-profile and catalytic projects, including the design of the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the Height Master Plan, and Beyond Granite. We would also like to acknowledge Michael's military service with the U.S. Army. In 2022, he retired as a colonel after 26 years, and he served in 2 combat tours. Michael, we want to thank you together as a commission, and I want to thank you as chair of the commission for your federal and military service, and wish you very much luck and all the best in your next endeavor, in your next adventure. So thank you, Michael. And I just, on a personal note, want to say that, Michael, it's been a joy to work with you. You're so helpful. And when I became the chair of the commission, and you were very good at showing me the ropes in some of these big projects, as was mentioned, very highly catalytic projects in the district and in the capital region. So thank you. And I know you'll continue to contribute to the capital region in your next adventure. So thank you again. Agenda item number 3 is report of the Executive Director, Marcel Acosta.
Thank you, Chair Goodman, and good afternoon. Today, our team will update the Commission on the Interagency Pennsylvania Avenue Initiative. We're also offering similar virtual presentations to the public on Thursday, June 12th. and on Tuesday, June 24th. And further information can be found on NCPC's website. Also, on behalf of the NCPC staff, I'd like to express our gratitude to Mike Sherman on his well-deserved retirement. As the chair mentioned, his accomplishments as a longtime member of the NCPC staff for over 2 decades showcase his commitment to the planning profession and dedication to this agency. I'd also like to acknowledge his service as Colonel in the Army Reserve, and we thank Mike for his service and wish him all the best. Your packet includes my full report, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Marcel. Do any commissioners in the chambers or online have any questions for Marcel today? Hearing none. Thank you, Marcel. We'll move on. Agenda item number 4 is a legislative update from Megan Huddle-Cox. Megan?
Thank you. I don't have any specific legislation to report on to the commission this month, but I'm happy to answer any questions on pending legislation if there are any.
Very good. Commissioners, do you have any questions online or in the chambers? Any questions for Megan Huddle-Cox today? Hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you, Megan. We have 5 items on the open session today, 3 applications and 2 information presentations. Agenda item 5A is a request to approve final site development plans for the Texas Legation Memorial. And today we're going to be hearing from Jamie Herr on this project. Jamie?
Good afternoon, Chair Goodman and members of the commission. The National Memorial for commission review and approval. Just a couple of quick refreshers on memorials and where we are right now in this commemorative process. This is the final review for this memorial as noted here. At this point, the National Capital Memorial Advisory Commission and the U.S. Commission of Fine Arts have approved memorial. NCMAC has an advisory role over the commemorative works, whereas CFA and NCPC have approval authority on site and design. The commission previously reviewed the site selection for the memorial in December of 2021 and the preliminary design in March of 2024. Also, a quick reminder of the required criteria outlined in the Commemorative Works Act for site and design approval. This includes locating the work in surroundings that are relevant to the subject and in a location that does not interfere with an existing work. The location should also protect open space and existing public use, as well as cultural and natural resources. And with that, I'll get into the submission. In 2020, under Public Law 116-248, Congress authorized the Daughters of the Republic of Texas to build a commemorative work in Washington, D.C. to commemorate and honor those who, as representatives of the Republic of Texas, served in the District of Columbia as diplomats to the United States and made possible the annexation of Texas as the 28th state. The proposed memorial location is on the south side of Indiana Avenue Northwest, as noted here. As part of the memorial design process, the applicant studied existing memorials in the area for context. The memorial site is an existing planter surrounded by a low stone-clad wall. The site is between the Argentine Naval Attaché and public sidewalk on the south side of Indiana Avenue. The proposed memorial will not impact existing pedestrian circulation or access, and the site itself has good access and visibility from the adjacent public sidewalk and street. The existing planter contains a light fixture and trees that will be removed as part of the memorial construction. The final memorial has not changed significantly since the prior review and includes 2 main elements, the stone memorial and the landscaping. For the stone memorial, the design for the memorial includes a star-shaped stone base topped with a pentagon-shaped memorial plinth and a Daughters of the Republic of Texas medallion. The applicant is proposing the star base and plinth constructed out of white Mount Airy granite, which will be topped with the 11-inch diameter Daughters of the Republic of Texas Historic Sites medallion. Here are the final plinth panel details. On the 3 sides of the plinth closest to the sidewalk, the applicant is proposing 3 memorial engravings telling the story of the Texas Legation, a map of the Republic of Texas, and the Republic of Texas diplomats sent to Washington, D.C. The Commission previously recommended the applicant increase the size of the memorial text to improve visibility, and the final proposed text size for the left and right engraving face is proposed at 3/4 of an inch, which was an increase from the previous 1/2 inch. The second part of the memorial design is the landscaping. The final memorial landscape is organized by two asymmetrical plant palettes oriented to the northwest corner where the memorial is located. A field of low-growing native evergreen sedge makes up the foreground, maintaining access to the plinth. Beyond the sedge is an interplanted field of meadow plants. The sweet bay magnolia is located on axis from the memorial plinth. The selection of plants that comprise the memorial are either native to Texas or to the mid-Atlantic of Washington, D.C. Here is a rendering of the memorial with the proposed landscaping. In conclusion, staff recommends the Commission approve the final site development plans for the proposed Texas Legation Memorial in Washington, D.C. This concludes my presentation. I have included the Executive Director's recommendations, but they are listed here for your reference. I would like to introduce Kitty Hoek, Republic of Texas Legation Memorial Special Committee Chairperson with the Daughters of the Republic of Texas, who would like to make some remarks. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't have my mic on. Thank you, Jamie, and I want to welcome Ms. Kitty Hook to make your comments to the commission.
I just would like to extend my deepest gratitude to the National Capital Planning Commission and their staff, the National Park Service and their staff, the Commission of Fine Arts and their staff, and the Daughters of the Republic of Texas and members of the Legation Memorial Committee. I'd also like to thank Carolyn Warlick-Levins from Baylor, Blender and Bell. She's the designer of the memorial, and Sarah Downing, the landscape architect. There are many, many others to thank. We are proud of this memorial, and we are proud to join all those who contributed to the memorial. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for your work on this project.
Thank you.
If there are no further comments, Jamie and Kitty, then we're going to ask the commissioners online if they have any questions, or the commissioners in the chambers. Are there any questions for our presenters? Hearing none, then is there a motion to approve the final site development plans for the Texas Legation Memorial?
Move approval, Madam Chair.
It's been moved by Vice Chair Hewlett. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Stidham. And now we will open up this project for discussion. And I would like to start the deliberations today with Commissioner Stidham.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. This is going to be a great addition to the city, a beautiful space to a very great cause. So we look forward to moving from this final review to construction and having this available to the public to understand and learn about the history.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Commissioner Stidham. Commissioner Argo.
I think this is a lovely addition to our memorials, and appreciate the work that's been done on it, and the interest that the commission has in seeing this going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Argo. Vice Chair Hewlett.
Yeah, thank you again, Ms. Farrer, and everyone for the presentation. There is a lot of history there, and some not as pretty in terms of what the Indian Removal Act there in Texas. But this memorial is important, and it's supposed to tell the story of how Texas became our 28th, was it 28th state? I guess it was from 45. And I think it's important to tell that story. It's important for those people who work so hard to bring this to fruition as our 28th state. But I hope it tells a little bit of the whole story leading up to the Trail of Tears. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hewlett. Commissioner Tunstall Williams.
No real additional comments other than I know this has been a long time coming, so congratulations to the applicant and to the staff for bringing this to a close. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tunstall Williams. Commissioner Dixon. Commissioner Dixon. I'm going to move on to Commissioner Cash, and we'll catch up with Commissioner Dixon if he gets back on.
No
online.
additional questions or comments, but thanks so much for the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Cash and Commissioner McGowan.
No additional comments. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner McGowan. And I want to thank the Daughters of the Republic of Texas for working with the National Park Service to update the memorial design with a larger font size so that the memorial is legible to visitors, and with the appropriate plant selection that's relevant to the memorial's commemorative intent. And I look forward to seeing the memorial realized and visiting it when it is completed. Are there any further comments or questions? Hearing none, can the secretary please confirm the motion and the second and take the vote by roll call?
Yes, the motion was made by Vice Chair Hewlett and seconded by Commissioner Stidham. Commissioner Cozart,
Yes.
Commissioner Stidham,
Yes.
Commissioner Argo,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hewlett,
Yes.
Chair Goodman,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunstall Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Dixon, Commissioner Cash,
Yes.
Commissioner McGowan.
Abstain.
The motion has carried. Thank you, Megan. Agenda item 5B is a request to approve preliminary site and building plans for the Heritage Men's Emergency Shelter. And we're going to hear today from Michael Weil. Michael, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Goodman and members of the Commission. The District Department of General Services has submitted plans to construct a new men's shelter located along New York Avenue in Northeast Washington, D.C. And this would replace the existing shelter which suffers from limited floor space, a failing HVAC system, and outdated electrical and plumbing infrastructure. Here's the project site located on the outskirts of the Ivy City neighborhood, just to the north of Gallaudet University and east of the National Park Service's Brentwood Maintenance Facility. The project site is part of a larger land parcel, which is owned by the federal government, outlined here in red, and this was transferred to the district for its use in 2010. The project site is currently developed with surface parking and an animal shelter with an existing forest conservation easement area along its west side. And here are two ground view photos, one looking directly south across New York Avenue, and then the other view here faces west, looking approximately parallel to New York Avenue. The main entrance to the new facility would be through the Welcome Center located in the northeast corner of the site. And then the new building would have two offset multi-level dormitory wings as illustrated here in this 3D massing model of the project. The new shelter design has a distinctive modern look with stepped facades with space for over 400 beds and 80 to 100 additional cots during colder weather. The new men's facility will also provide medical services, educational programs, recreational activities, dining, and counseling. The project would construct on-site parking for staff and visitors, a loading dock area, connecting access roads, and a rear patio area with vehicular access to the site provided only from Fairview Avenue in the future. In addition, the district is currently working with the National Park Service to modify the existing forest conservation easement area in order to accommodate the project. And we note that NPS will submit the revised transfer agreement to NCPC for review and approval in the future as part of our executive director's comments. The building design takes several architectural cues from the nearby historic Hecht warehouse apartments, which are located just up the street from the project site, including the new shelter's stepped facade, its punched openings, and its glass and masonry exterior. Here's the project's landscape plan, which shows approximately 25 new trees on the site. And the district is considering additional trees along the street frontage as they continue to refine their plans. And NCPC staff supports a more robust streetscape here so as to enhance the visual quality of the corridor as an important gateway into downtown Washington, D.C. And we also reflect this point in our executive director's recommendation comments. The landscape plan shows separate, mostly native planting palettes for the bioretention and non-bioretention areas, with a variety of meadow and pollinator species and 2 species of milkweed, swamp milkweed and butterfly milkweed. And we do have one person who has signed up to testify here at today's meeting who would like to urge the district to add common milkweed to their plan as well, and to use all native plants and parent species. However, staff has reviewed the landscape plans and we find it to be consistent with our best practices guidance. And we note this as part of our executive director's comments. So here is our preliminary approval recommendation of the commission, and our comments have all been included in my presentation here today. And before I conclude, I would like to note that we do have the project's land use attorney, Ms. Meredith Moldenhauer, who is here in person, as well as several of the design team members who are at today's meeting virtually. And they are all available for any questions that you may have after the testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Are there any questions from commissioners in the chambers or online? Any questions for Michael? Yes, we have one question.
Is there a reason, I know it's in your regular site, but why the buildings don't hold the straight edge? Is that a programmatic choice or is it just a design choice?
I believe it's a design choice, but I would like someone from the design team to respond.
Yes, hi, this is Siman Sorg, and I'm the lead designer from Sorg Architects. You know, the grid on this part of Ivy City is orthogonal, shifting to radial. So the property lines become radial as you go east on Fairview Avenue. So one of the wings parallels New York Avenue, and then the other one becomes a radial wing as you go east. The other reason for it not following all along New York Avenue, that the community and the client, DHS, did not want a long block institutional looking building. They wanted smaller scale residential buildings scattered in a garden. So it gives protected a courtyard space both between the 2 wings in the front and the back for outdoor gathering.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional questions? Yes, Commissioner Cash?
Well, we're talking about design, I guess I'll bite. So one of the things that really kind of leapt out to me here, the patios. Like I haven't seen that design in any of the other shelters that we've done lately. And it seems like for an institutional use like this, I mean, I would love to have a patio. I've been living in DC 25 years and haven't, but it's taking away a lot of square footage that could otherwise be used for like program space or for shelter space. So I'm just wondering what the idea behind these large patios were for a use such as this.
If I may answer, the COVID taught us that being an outdoor space contiguous to the residential space without going through the building, mixing with other people was very important. So this shelter is designed with only 50 beds per floor, only 10 beds per dorm. And so each end of each floor is a lounge space and a quiet space, and off of the lounge space is a small terrace, which is open to the sky, so that people can use the terrace in small groups, and it's a supervised terrace, and so each dorm of 10 people or so can be let into the lounge and into the patio in a secure way.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Cash, did you have any additional questions? I see another comment coming. I can't read it though, so perhaps someone could help.
I think it was someone from DHS that was raising their
Someone
hand.
from DHS had raised their hand online. Is there someone who wanted to comment? Any answer to that question? No.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
yes.
No, my apologies. I recently joined as a panelist. But just to answer or add more context to the previous question, my name is Dwayne Gentry. I'm the Facilities Operations Manager for the Department of Human Services.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us. There's another example where we've utilized a patio at the short-term family housing site at the Terrell, which is 1400 Clifton Avenue. And it does allow us the flexibility to be able to offer or to allow for more entertaining within the space rather than congregating outside the space.
Thank you for sharing that information. We appreciate that. Okay, are there any further questions from commissioners in the chambers or online? Hearing none, we're going to now turn to public testimony, and we do have one person signed up to speak today, Mr. Bernard Byrne, who is attending the meeting virtually. You have 3 minutes to provide your testimony. Could you please, first of all, are you there, Mr. Byrne? Mr. Byrne, are you online?
Oh, now can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. It's
yeah,
good to hear your voice. Go
I
for it.
I was muted for some reason.
Oh dear. Okay.
Okay. I said this before to you, but I'll repeat it again. The landscape project plan for this project, as many others, does not adequately conform to the NCPC's pollinator best practice resource guide. The guide states common milkweed is clearly an important species that is critical to survival of the monarch butterflies. This is important because now it is being considered as a designation as a threatened species by the Fish and Wildlife Service. Within meadows, landscapes designed landscapes, common milkweed should be planted along with diversity of other milkweed species on federal landscape plans to the fullest extent possible and as appropriate for the site conditions. Nevertheless, the landscaping does not contain any information, and for some strange reason, staff didn't consider this a major deficiency. It is. Ditches are within a broad array of natural habitats of common milkweed, which also thrives in meadows. Common milkweed is adapted to standing water, which often accumulates in ditches. The agency should therefore install common milkweed in the project's planned stormwater retention management or bioretention facilities. The bioretention plant schedule contains swamp milkweed. However, this is an early successful plant that tends to disappear as vegetative densities increase and habitats dry out. The plant should therefore contain swamp milkweed only if the area's soil will not dry out, which is not likely. The native plant grass wildflower mixes contain butterfly weed, Asclepias tuberosa. However, the guide states that studies have shown that monarch butterflies lay fewer eggs on Asclepias tuberosa than on other milkweeds. The agency should replace all butterfly milkweed plugs with similar numbers of common milkweed plugs. The agency should also replace containers of swamp milkweed in the bioretention plan schedule with similar numbers of common milkweed containers. These are simple changes, but they don't seem to be done. The plant schedules and mixes for this phase project will contain 8 species of plants that are either not native to North America or are native to North America but are not native to the National Capital Region. 3 of these are already known to be invasive. 2 of the native grass wildflower mixes contain one of these plants, purple coneflower. The agency should replace all non-native species with species that are native to the National Capital Region. My written testimony contains more information on this and some other things too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Byrne. We appreciate your input. Thank you for testifying today. Is there a motion to approve the preliminary site and building plans for the Heritage Men's Emergency Shelter?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, it's been moved by Vice Chair Hewlett. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Stidham. And now I'm going to open this up for commission discussion. So I will start deliberations with Commissioner Kozar.
I don't have any comments. Thanks to the staff for your work on this.
Thank you, Commissioner Kozar. Commissioner Stidham.
Thank you for the presentation. We are very supportive of this work. We are working with the district to retransfer this property for this use and feel like it's a very good project to move forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Stidham. Commissioner Argo, online.
Yes, I'm very supportive of this and the work that's been done. Appreciate the presentation. Looking forward with our approval to have this get underway. It's overdue. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Argo. Vice Chair Hewitt.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Wall, for the presentation, and I concur with my colleagues for their very positive response to this initiative. I truly applaud the mayor's Homeward DC initiative to begin with, and these new beds and this new facilities will be a tremendous asset and much needed asset for people, and I just thank you for that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hewitt. Commissioner Tunstall Williams.
Thank you for the presentation, and I too am very supportive of the project. I think, share Commissioner Cash's concern that are we leaving some development on the table for a much needed resource, right? Is there a way to get additional rooms and beds here? Obviously, there's budgetary and other implications, but I think it's worth exploring because there is, I think, additional development capacity on the site while still providing the outdoor sort of respite that you're looking to provide them. Because I can't help myself, I know we're at preliminary design. The facade expression feels very checkerboardy to me. So it feels a little, I don't know, you don't want to have the connotation of people being pawns. So just thinking about how that expression sort of evolves over time to soften a little bit, it kind of seems incongruous with the soft landscape around it. So just something to think about as the design develops. I know we're very early days, but very supportive of the project and welcome to see how it evolves.
Thank you, Commissioner Tunstall Williams. Commissioner Dixon online. Commissioner Dixon, I think we've lost you. We'll come back if Commissioner Dixon reappears. Commissioner Cash.
Thank you. Not to beat a dead horse, but I thank Commissioner Tunstall Williams for her comments. So I mean, and just looking at the 1400 Clifton property, I mean, they seem to have a decent sized roof area. I think it's great to have that outdoor space. I know when we were looking at the shelter up on Idaho Avenue, there's a lot of pushback from the neighbors about having congregating space outdoors, and I'm hoping this is kind of a response to that, where we're just going to say, okay, we're going to keep it on the site so people won't circulate the neighborhood, because I think those concerns have turned out to be kind of unfounded. So when we're talking about a constrained site, that we're kind of have a lot of untapped development potential for a really huge patio for a 10-person dorm. And especially as you're saying, there's going to be supervised program space on each floor. I'm just thinking that's extra DHS staff on each floor. I just think that while you're still at the preliminary design phase, if we get like 2 more beds in per floor with some of this reclaimed space, then have a more communal space will maximize the number of beds that we can get in here and to make still a very comfortable and great facility. I think it's just something to look at. So I'll just leave it there. So thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Cash. Appreciate your comments. I want to thank Mr. Byrne. Again, he's always prepared to share thoughtful comments with us, and we do appreciate that, Mr. Byrne. And it does help shape our approach to these projects. Obviously, this is a very worthwhile project, and I would like to associate myself with those who've said that perhaps there's a way to get a few more rooms into the design. But I also want to congratulate the team for identifying a residential space for vulnerable individuals that is surrounded by beauty, because I do think that it's very important for all of us to be surrounded by nature and to have spaces where we can just be in direct contact with nature. So I reading this report found that was significant, jumped out at me, and I thought, wow, that's a powerful location. I love it. So I do understand that there's a great need. So I just want to congratulate the team and look forward to seeing the final designs return back to the commission. Are there any further questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. Can the secretary please confirm the motion and the second and take the vote by roll call?
Yes, the motion was made by Vice Chair Hewlett and seconded by Commissioner Stidham. Commissioner Cozart,
Yes.
Commissioner Stidham,
Yes.
Commissioner Argo,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hewlett,
Yes.
Chair Goodman,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunstall Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Cash,
Yes.
Commissioner McGowan.
Abstain.
Thank you very much. That motion has carried. Agenda item 5C is a request to approve final site and building plans for Joint Base Myer Henderson Hall, unaccompanied in enlisted personnel barracks. And Jamie Herr returns and is going to give this report. Jamie, welcome back.
Yeah, hope you're not tired of me yet. All right. Good afternoon again, Chair Goodman and members of the Commission. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, on behalf of the U.S. Army, has submitted the final site and building plans for the unaccompanied enlisted personnel barracks project at Joint Base Myer Henderson Hall in Fort Myer, Virginia, for Commission review and approval. The Commission's final review of projects focuses on whether the applicant addressed the comments and recommendations made during preliminary review on topics such as landscape design, stormwater management, programming, and consistency with the comprehensive plan. Joint Base Myer Henderson Hall includes 2 locations, Joint Base in Fort Myer, Virginia, and Fort McNair in Southwest Washington, D.C. Joint Base Myer Henderson Hall is 272 acres that is home to several Army and U.S. Marine units, including the headquarters for the Joint Base, Command Battalion, and U.S. Marine Corps, as well as the U.S. Army Band, the Old Guard, the Radar U.S. Army Clinic, and the Commander-in-Chief's Guard. The northern portion of the base is primarily Army-focused missions, and the southern portion is Marine Corps missions. The project site is in the center of the base, along Sheridan Avenue as shown here. The applicant is also proposing a site for habitat restoration as part of the tree replacement requirements northeast of the project site noted here. The existing site contains several buildings, including historic residential duplexes, garages, and a decommissioned pool facility planned for demolition as part of the project. As a reminder, the applicant is able to demolish these buildings by complying with the process outlined in the program comment for Department of the Army Interwar Historic Housing, Associated Buildings and Structures, and Landscape Features from 1919 to 1940, also referred to as the program comment, which was enacted in 2020. The applicant has finalized the details of the barracks with only minimal changes since preliminary review. The main updates are to the landscape plans, the courtyards, dormers, roofing material, and front porches, which I will now go into in more detail. As noted, here are the final proposed materials. The applicant is proposing brick and stone to match existing buildings, faux slate roofing, and standing seam metal on the porches. This is the design approved by the Commission at the preliminary review last year. As you can see here, the buildings are almost unchanged from the preliminary review at this view and include historic massing and scale to coordinate with existing buildings and historic districts in the area. This is a view of the building from the east at the preliminary review a year ago. And this is the updated view of the courtyard as viewed from the landscape area to the east. The applicant has made minor changes to the porches and courtyards. In more detail, here's a close-up of one of the courtyards from the preliminary review and the final review. The courtyard treatment where you can see the updates, including terracing and additional seating. Here is a bird's eye view of the updated buildings. Given the updates, staff commends the applicant for finalizing the design to respect the historic integrity of the site. Specifically, the applicant has maintained the overall scale, materials, fenestration, and design of the architecture from the preliminary review to continue to be compatible with the Fort Myer National Historic District. They have updated the courtyard spaces to create restful space for enlisted personnel. They've ensured that the security standoff requirements are met without sacrificing design quality, and they've preserved existing street trees by providing a greater setback and adding landscaping to create a campus environment that blends with the existing context. The applicant has also made minor changes to the landscape plans. The proposed plant selections are focused on non-invasive and hardy species as pictured here. Many of the proposed plants will be used in the bioswale plantings to the east of the buildings or in the habitat restoration zone. In addition to the site plantings, the applicant designated a habitat restoration area northeast of the site for tree replacement. The area will include a walking path and a mixture of plants, some of which are pictured here, and staff commends the applicant for updating the habitat restoration area to create a high-quality and inviting space. In regards to the overall landscape plan, the Commission has received public comment indicating concern about a lack of native pollinator species and the use of non-native species in the planting palette. The applicant has responded that some of the suggested changes were incorporated into the design of the landscape plan and the offsite habitat restoration area, including the use of milkweed and buttonbush. The applicant has also indicated, however, that some of the suggestions were not appropriate for the landscape or location. Staff notes the applicant has updated the plans with some plants they deemed appropriate and believes the plans comply with the comprehensive plan for the national capital and guidance in NCPC's Pollinator Best Practices Resource Guide. In conclusion, staff recommends the Commission approve the final site development plans for the unaccompanied enlisted personnel barracks at Joint Base Myer Henderson Hall. This concludes my presentation. I've incorporated the Executive Director's recommendations into my presentation, but I've included them here for your reference. I'm available to answer any questions you may have, and the project team is available to answer any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Do commissioners online or in the chambers have any questions for our presenter today? Any questions? Hearing none, we'll turn now to public testimony. We have one person signed up to speak today. Mr. Bernard Byrne, you have 3 minutes to provide your testimony. Please proceed when you are ready.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It worked this time. Most of my comments for this project are similar to the ones that I made for the previous projects. I have to repeat them, unfortunately. This landscape plan for this project does not adequately conform to the NCPC's Pollinator Best Practices Resource Guide. As I previously noted, the guide states, within meadows and designed landscapes, common milkweed should be planted along with diversity of other milkweed species on federal landscape plans to the fullest extent possible and as appropriate for the site conditions. Nevertheless, the landscape of this project also does not contain any common milkweed, although it is appropriate for the site conditions. As I stated previously, ditches are within the broad array of natural habitats of common milkweed, which also thrives in meadows. Common milkweed is adapted to standing water, which often accumulates in ditches. As I stated for the previous project, the agency should install common milkweed in the project's planned stormwater management and bioretention facilities. I have to repeat this often. The landscape will contain swamp milkweed. However, as I also stated previously, this is an early successional plant that is not a good vegetative competitor and tends to disappear as habitats dry out. The planting should therefore include swamp milkweed only if the site's soil will not be able to dry out. This is not likely, because they do dry out, even if bioretention facilities. The agency will border a paved outdoor plaza with chinko trees. That non-native tree, although not invasive, does actually hosts few or no native pollinators. You won't see chewed up leaves on the chinko trees. The agency should replace the chinkos with willow oaks, which will plant in similar areas within the project. The proposed landscape plantings include Valley Forge American elm. This cultivar has only limited resistance to Dutch elm disease. At my request, the agency proposed to consider Jefferson and Princeton American elm as substitute for Valley Forge. However, the parent tree of Jefferson, which was on the National Mall, was dying in 2023 because of Dutch elm disease. It's not a good tree to plant, considering that. The agency should therefore install New Harmony and Princeton rather than Valley Forge or Jefferson. A National Elm Trials Cooperators chose those two as their favorite American elm cultivars. That's New Harmony and Princeton. Please make that change that to those trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Are there any questions from commissioners online or in the chambers for our witness today? Hearing none, thank you again, Mr. Byrne, and we will move on. Is there a motion to approve final site and building plans for Joint Base Myer Henderson Hall unaccompanied enlisted personnel barracks?
So move, Madam Chair.
There's been a motion by
Second.
Vice Chair Hewlett, second by Commissioner Argo. And I'll open this up to the commission for discussion. And I'm going to start with Commissioner Green is not here, so we're going to move on to Commissioner Tunstall Williams.
I don't have any questions, but I would like to commend the design team on the sort of careful contextual design. I mean, I remember touring this site a couple of years ago early on, and that wasn't at all a given. So I do commend the team for a great progress. I think it looks great. My only question is whether those courtyards will get any sun so the beautiful plants can grow. But otherwise, great project. Forward to it moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Tunstall Williams. Commissioner Dixon? No, is he not on? Okay, Commissioner Cash?
I was also going to thank the team for the tour a couple of years ago. I think it was good to get the context of the site and walking around, especially the buildings with the courtyards. I remember walking by them, so I think that designs landed in a good place, and I look forward to it moving forward.
Great, thank you. Commissioner McGowan?
No comments. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner McGowan. Commissioner Kozart?
Thanks to the staff for their work on this project. And it's turned out to be in a really good place. No other comments from me.
Thank you, Commissioner Kozart. Commissioner Stidham?
I also thank you, and I think it looks great. So nothing further from me.
Thank you, Commissioner Stidham. Commissioner Argo?
I have, I'm align myself with the other commissioners' comments. It looks really good and something that I think we're, at least those of us I've heard from are happy to support. So, thank you. No other comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Argo. Vice Chair Hewlett?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Hur, for your presentation. And I too align myself with the comments of my colleagues and applaud the design team for the continued refinement as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hewlett. Mr. Byrne, I'd just like to say thank you again for sharing your comments with the commission, and thank you to the applicant team for the inspired design. I am also very impressed and after touring the site, but also seeing the great work that was done in the design and just very, very, very nice. And it's so important to provide quality housing for service members and also to ensure that that these projects contribute to the base as a whole. So thank you very much. Congratulations all around. Are there any further comments or questions? Hearing none, can the secretary please confirm the motion and take the roll?
Yes, the motion was made by Vice Chair Hewlett and seconded by Commissioner Argo. Commissioner Kozart?
Yes.
Commissioner Stidham?
Yes.
Commissioner Argo?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hewlett?
Yes.
Chair Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Tunstall Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Cash?
Yes.
Commissioner McGowan?
Abstain.
Thank you very much, Megan. And now we're going to move on to the last two agenda items. The first is agenda item 6A, and this is an information presentation on the Pennsylvania Avenue Initiative update. Karen Shearhold will introduce the update on new Pennsylvania Avenue plan from the design team, David Rubin, Land Collective. I'm very excited about our federal and district partners' progress to develop a new plan that will beautify the avenue's public spaces, upgrade the aging infrastructure, and create efficient stewardship to improve maintenance, operations, and programming. I just want to say this is an incredibly exciting project. It is going to be a legacy project. It's going to define the next half century in Washington, D.C., and it's a rare opportunity to be participating in this. And from reading the reports and following this, I just want to say thank you for all the work in advance on this, because it's breathtaking in scope and it's a very important project. So thank you. So Karen, if you'd like to proceed, please, you and David. David, thank you so much for being here in person today. Your legacy sort of precedes you too. So thank you for being a part of this. Okay, thank you. Karen?
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chair Goodman and members of the Commission. I'm very happy to be here today with David Rubin from our consultant team to share a progress update on the new Pennsylvania Avenue Plan Public Space Master Plan. For those that may be tuning in for the first time, I'll briefly cover some background information. Our project area is focused on the 1.2-mile segment of Pennsylvania Avenue between the White House and the U.S. Capitol, and includes the intersecting streets, adjacent blocks, and about 40 acres of public space. The avenue is currently guided by a 50-year-old 1974 plan developed by the Pennsylvania Avenue Development Corporation. This plan is administered through a complex jurisdictional structure with several federal and district agencies responsible for different aspects of planning and operations within the corridor. In 2023, NCPC, the National Park Service, the U.S. General Services Administration, District of Columbia Government, Downtown DC Business Improvement District, and Events DC formed a partnership to prepare a new Pennsylvania Avenue plan. Federal and local stakeholders agree on a new vision that the avenue should be a beautiful street designed for people first, and that its highest and best use is as a venue, elevated as America's stage for events of regional and national significance. And the avenue needs to be a better place for daily life, a memorable destination that balances pedestrian, bikes, vehicles, and transit with beautiful and engaging public spaces for people to enjoy every day, all day, and into the evening. Two teams are leading the development of this new plan. David Rubin Land Collective is leading the Public Space Master Plan, which is the subject of today's presentation. This is a physical public space plan that will address the alignment and configuration of the street and public spaces and the infrastructure needs to realize the vision of the avenue as a venue. Improvements to the avenue's corridor and public spaces will make them safe, beautiful, and event-ready. HRNA Advisors is leading the implementation program, which will address governance, including administration, operations, and maintenance, all critical to the avenue's use, upkeep, enjoyment, and long-term success. The consultant teams are working closely with our partners, both senior executives and their technical experts, as well as NCPC's internal planning and design staff. Design team, Land Collective, shown in the green bars, started in December. They're currently working towards preliminary design alternatives that will be part of the new plan. This is where we are now. The next phase of work will be to begin NEPA in Section 106 later this fall. Once we initiate NEPA in 106, we have a year to complete the design development and required documentation. That year includes going to this commission and the Commission of Fine Arts for review, comment, and ultimately approval of the new plan. We will have several opportunities for public comment during this phase. We hope to have the new plan substantially complete by America's 250th anniversary of independence, though we anticipate approval of the final plan to be sometime in early 2027. Once approved, certain aspects of the new plan will require legislative actions before implementation, after which another entity and not NCPC will lead final design and construction. And now I'm very excited to turn it over to David Rubin from David Rubin Land Collective, who will share his team's initial findings and initial ideas.
Thank you, Karen. I wanted to extend my appreciation for NCPC and the partnership they put together. It continues to be an honor to explore this exciting project with all of the partners associated with the project. As Karen made reference, our project outline is here identified in red. I call your attention to the dashed areas to the southeast, one on 4th Street between buildings associated with the National Gallery of Art, and the other that extends to the Peace Memorial on the Capitol, which is under jurisdiction of the architect of the Capitol. I want to say that they both entities have been extremely cooperative with us and are working in alignment and complementing the work that we're doing. I also want to acknowledge the fact that the red line is abhorrent to landscape architects like myself, who recognize that systems move in and out freely, both sociologically, anthropologically, and ecologically. So we tend to go beyond that. And we've been having a good time extending and pulling in aspects of adjacencies into this project. We've been in a data gathering mode for this and have had many project partner technical meetings. These are meetings where staff from the associated agencies with oversight have been joining us to discuss the challenges of the site. Our topics are listed here. There are also many more, and these meetings are ongoing. They happen bi-weekly throughout our tenure on the project. I also want to acknowledge once again that we have many stakeholders associated with the project that we are working in collaboration with, in particular the National Gallery of Art, the Architect of the Capitol, and also the Military District of Washington, who are in charge of the inaugural parade, which proceeds up Pennsylvania Avenue and has very specific requirements associated with that. We are not starting from scratch. It's very important to understand that we have a lot of work that has taken place in advance, and it is a great starting point for us. Many of these studies, they have preceded us in our efforts. And in addition to that, we have been building upon the work that was undertaken previously, the expert focus groups, the 3 vision concepts, and the public concepts or comments as well. I'll come back to the 3 vision concepts in just a second. In addition, we've had the great pleasure of working with adjacent properties, those who are affected by Pennsylvania Avenue and the north-south corridors associated with that. We are under a mandate from ourselves to do no harm to anybody who is adjacent. We want to respect their ownership of property. We want to acknowledge the infrastructure associated with making them successful. And we do not want to do anything that would be to the detriment of their own success. So we are really working with them. And I believe Monday, we're actually having another meeting with adjacency owners. In addition, we're coordinating with other public space projects associated with the downtown area. They're represented here. We are not working in isolation, but in complement to all of these ongoing efforts for public space review. There are a few baseline conditions that are associated with the project. We want to create an avenue that is welcoming and available to all Americans and visitors. We want to retain the view corridors toward the U.S. Capitol. Those should be prioritized, and we are utilizing the adjacent arboriculture as framing devices associated with that. We also want to acknowledge that this will be a multimodal transportation avenue that includes pedestrians, cyclists, share vehicles, private vehicles, that we will be working with loading and public and private buses, but also the pickups and drop-offs associated with the avenue and the success of the retail and commercial establishments adjacent. The avenue is host to many events. We want to respect that and actually increase the capacity of the avenue to relieve some of the stress that is on the National Mall for large events, and to recognize that these events that we might host on the avenue are anything from intimate farmers markets that might happen on a daily basis to significant events that take up the entirety of the avenue itself. And that is a broad range. But there's we're working hard to acknowledge that there will be infrastructure needs associated with that, and that they would be in place to reduce operations and maintenance costs and the challenges associated with putting up a variety of events. The avenue is also hooked to the inaugural parade. That is overseen by the Military District of Washington, and they have very specific requirements for the success of that event that takes place every 4 years. And we are working diligently to ensure their success as well. And that the plan should integrate north-south connections. There are 35 million visitors that come to the National Mall every year, and there's an opportunity to stitch that experience into the downtown experience of Washington, D.C. so that they are complementary, and that the what is presently could be seen as an abyss in the breadth of the avenue could be made to be very much more humane and habitable while still being monumental. Therefore, pulling people up to the downtown and also in reverse. And that there are existing retail spaces along the way, and they should be prioritized. But they should, the avenue itself should comprise a retail component that is in complement, not in competition, to the downtown's economic efforts. So we are working strategically with the downtown to ensure that type of complementary relationship. Indeed, we are pulling from past ideas. We are testing the concepts and are pulling forward the best ideas from each of the iterations associated with previous studies. They are extraordinary studies, and we are building upon them, pulling from them the best aspects of it. So we have acknowledged several assets that we think are important, that the street itself should be multimodal, but not a linear park per se or a transit-only street. We should be prioritizing pedestrian promenade experiences, though putting people at the center of the avenue would be very challenging. So we're trying to find other means by which to do that. And that we're avoiding significant circulation changes to the eastern end. Previously, they were acknowledged as the tunnel associated with Constitution and also going underneath the avenue or reverting Constitution Avenue back to its original alignment, which in its original format was causing significant traffic challenges. So we're going to do no harm there in the context of that. In the current direction, and based on the input from partners and senior leadership, we are considering changes to the western end with an aspiration to not only maintain the First Amendment rights, but also establish better support for events, both large and small, and those of daily use. We also want to celebrate the framed Capitol view and shaded walk associated with that, but diversify prospectively the canopy and the experiences associated with that. We also want to increase the accessibility and amenities that make for a successful avenue. Something wonderful happening every walking minute is the definition of a great street, and we aspire that this should be the great street. And that we want to focus on the north-south connections, as I stated, to stitch downtown to the mall so that they are working in complement with each other. I want to acknowledge that any ideas that we have are ideas still. They are in development. Nothing has been solidified. There is a lot of flexibility exploration that will continue to take place. But that the work to date has focused on the general design intent and testing for all of those elements that are listed here and many more. Those are part of our studies with the steering group. That these ideas are tested across the breadth of the avenue. So starting from the western end, new ideas for that area, the potential for expanding the northern sidewalk, ideas for Market Square and Indiana Avenue, as well as new ideas for John Marshall Park. And in addition to that, a capacity to change the breadth of the avenue. So we're considering opportunities to expand the northern sidewalk and exploring realignment of the cartways for cars and buses, the bike lanes, and the sidewalk areas to create an extraordinary experience along the length and breadth of the avenue. In the context of the existing conditions, the breadth of the avenue is represented here in two extremes. These are the bookends associated with that, the largest section being represented on the left, the narrowest on the right. In all cases, our goal is to give everyone the dramatic view towards the Capitol, not just cyclists who are presently at the center of the road, and also to do that safely, so that everybody that wants to see the Capitol and experience that great and dramatic monumental view can do so without risk. The components associated with the corridor include views and alignment, as well as accessibility, and as always, the recognition that the inaugural parade and other events have to be successful along the length of the avenue. That the roadway is intended to be multimodal transportation, which includes travel lanes, cycle track, pedestrian spaces, bus stops, pickups and drop-offs. As well, the sidewalks should be experiential along its length, comprised of different tree species and their placement and patterning, predominating or creating shade in the context of a very warm climate during the summer, particularly today. Sidewalk programming opportunities, building access and activation, events and support infrastructure, as well as security and utilities. It is a very complex street. Beyond the cartways, our aspiration would be to create a pedestrian travel zone that includes views to the Capitol. This is pulling forward ideas from the concepts, integrating that notion of a pedestrian-focused corridor, but also accommodate multimodal transportations beyond the cars and trucks to include buses and bike travel as well. That then addresses or leaves the programmable sidewalk spaces on the north and south sides, and as well as the need along the area of the Federal Triangle to recognize security and security buffers associated with that, which should be integrated in a manner that is capable without being fortified, right? So that it reads seamlessly in the context of the urban environment. There are 3 significant rooms along the length of the avenue, here represented by the western end, which is comprised of the World War I Memorial and Pershing Park, as well as Freedom Plaza. In the middle by Market Square, which holds the Navy Memorial and Indiana Avenue. And then at the eastern end, John Marshall Park and at Constitution, and the 4th Street, which moves north-south from the mall to the courthouse. I want to call your attention to the eastern end and the middle as well, because what's fascinating about this space of the U.S. Navy Memorial and Market Square and its adjacency with Indiana Avenue, the remnant of that avenue, and John Marshall Park, is that these can be considered of holistic interest, that they should not be designed as 2 parts of the avenue and its adjacency, but actually recognize that they can complement each other, support each other, and offer opportunities to scale up or scale down the experiences that people have along the avenue. In addition, particularly at Market Square, this is where the city tends to engage very specifically the federal construct of the avenue. It's where we have the most number of residents presently, although that is growing. And so recognizing an opportunity to create a room holistically in the Market Square area, here outlined in black, but also a recognition that this is the gateway to downtown, that there is an opportunity to extend our influence all the way down to the Hirshhorn and beyond, and north up to the Portrait Gallery, as well stitch together John Marshall Park across C and D streets and Indiana Avenue to ensure that this is truly a living, breathing connective tissue of the city. Just to remind you, this is the existing conditions of that particular area. At the center of the focus here is John Marshall Park. And these are the existing conditions of the park. The image on the upper right, I'm standing at Pennsylvania Avenue looking up towards the courtyard. It's an extraordinary facade, but you'll see also an extent of lawn and mature trees. And at the lower right, you can see midway up to the courthouses, that expanse of lawn that leads down 4th Street beyond the National Gallery. We have an opportunity here to really create a living, thriving park. It is an opportunity to increase its programming, to utilize the mature trees to insert daily life programming, but also recognize that it could be used on more heraldic events and greater civic events in the context of the expanded lawn and the north-south corridor. It's also an area of changing topography. It rises as you go north, so it makes it easier to either see somebody performing in the distance either way, whether you're to the north or to the south, where a stage might be set up. It increases the capacity for people to see. One of our precedent studies of many is Bryant Park in New York City. If you know this park, it is a traditional Beaux-Arts park. It has a formality not unlike John Marshall Park. It also has an expanse of lawn that's used for flexible programming, from movie nights and performances to just the daily life of urban living. And underneath the sycamore trees that surround the park, there are assorted program elements that are there on a daily basis, everything from a reading library to a carousel to bocce courts. These are the things that enhance daily living in an urban context and have a great opportunity to show themselves in the context of John Marshall as well. Now we're moving to Market Square. These are the existing conditions associated with that. You can identify the globe that is the Navy Memorial. You'll see the archives on the lower left along the length of 8th Street and Indiana Avenue as well. And it's, again, I want to point out the relationship of this space in the context of Pennsylvania Avenue and its relationship to the east with John Marshall. So Market Square also has varied assets associated with its existing conditions. The memorial is represented in the upper left drawing. You can see in the distance the portrait gallery, that wonderful facade. If I were to turn around in that photograph and look across the street, you see the facade of the archives talking back to it. So it's one of those corridors that we really should be thinking strategically about, both for its value as adjacency to Pennsylvania Avenue, but it's also its value to the downtown as an extraordinary street. On the lower right, in addition to the memorial that you just heard earlier on with the Texas litigation, you can see Indiana Avenue and its expanse. Important here is the vision of the Washington Monument in the distance, that beyond the Federal Triangle buildings. So this room that we're trying to construct that marks the area is really meant to be thought of comprehensively as one great space, though comprised of many different experiences. And it is, as I said, the overlap between this great monumental federal gesture and daily living associated with the downtown. That's where we see an opportunity to engage Indiana Avenue in its capacity to have flexible programming, but as well the capacity of C Street to be extended physically by walking to John Marshall, as well as the connections north-south, where 7th and 8th become integral to the economic benefits of the downtown. We're looking to precedents, this one being Franklin Park, also in Washington, D.C. It's a 5-acre park with many different programming assets associated with it and a central fountain. But also want to remind ourselves that this is called Market Square because there used to be the substantial market historically in this area. And so, again, this overlap between assets needed for living, such as food and market elements, and the capacity to engage the downtown and the residents associated with this really gives us an opportunity to create an environment that is both complex and enriching. And then to the west end, the existing conditions seen here, you'll see Freedom Plaza here, as well as the World War I Memorial Pershing Park construct. Pennsylvania Avenue deflects here, and in many respects, this becomes the terminus to the avenue. The existing conditions here are represented in photographs. You'll see Freedom Plaza in the upper left there, a significant open space with views to the Capitol. Also on the lower right, the World War I Memorial and Pershing Park renovation, but that acts both as urban park and thoughtful memorial. There are many opportunities here that we're exploring, in particular, how this space will support great events associated with First Amendments, but also issues, but also events of various scales associated with the Avenue. And in addition, how the National Theater might be able to utilize this space more effectively, as well as the Wilson Building have its identity placed in this zone. So there are many ways in which we're thinking about the alignments, in particular the north-south connections that take advantage of using Wilson Plaza as a space that connects Pennsylvania Avenue back down to the National Mall and the Smithsonian Museums. One of the precedents that we've been looking at is of comparable scale. It is in Paris, the Place de la République. It is almost foot to foot, the same dimensions as Freedom Plaza. It is a space that has a central component in the form of a statue of the Republic, and also a significant shade associated with the bosques of trees, but enough paving to allow for significant events to take place here. It's where the French protest and express their First Amendment rights, just as we might do at Freedom Plaza. It also has a pavilion and a skim fountain associated with play. These are images both of gatherings in that space. You can see how people are using that space, but on a daily basis, it becomes this rich urbane condition, dappled light, extensive paving, pavilions, and water. So the next steps for us include development of potential design alternatives in collaboration with these project partners. Again, I want to express my sincere thanks to all of them. It has been an extraordinary collaboration and continues to be such, and also our collaborations with HRNA and the implementation aspects of this. We'll be moving forward with the NEPA Section 106 process anticipated for late 2025. And we have a final plan documentation approval, hopefully by late 26, early 27. So with that, I'd like to extend it back to Karen.
Great. Thank you, David. And before we conclude, I want to share that in addition to this information presentation, we are hosting 2 online public briefings this month on June 12th and on June 24th. David and I will share the same presentation as we did today. And registration for these is on our website at ncpc.gov. So Madam Chair, that concludes our presentation, and David and I are here for any questions.
Thank you very much, Karen, and thank you, David. That was a breathtaking presentation. And I will ask the commission now online or in person if you have any questions for the presenters today. Yes, Commissioner Cozart.
Thank you. So I'm curious, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I'm curious about the example you were just talking about, the Place de République.
Yes.
If you could talk about kind of the, all I can call them is security measures, given that, you know, a lot of pedestrians and it's in the middle of a busy city. And then if you could kind of characterize what you're hearing from nearby property owners at a high level, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you for your question. And Karen, please step in if there's anything that I should miss. What's fascinating about Place de la République is that it has been established at grade in the context of its adjacencies. So it is a 6-inch step up curb height. And it has a periphery of seating components and other assets that act both for receiving the tush graciously, but also for fortification. So the notion being that people can inhabit the space, feel safe about it, that there is visible fortification without being overwhelming. In addition to the north, and that's the image on the left, you can't quite see it there, but there's actually a Woodruff type of street, so it's accessible to the adjacent buildings. It expands the breadth of the that particular precedent to engage the adjacent sidewalk. The paving pattern continues. It is elevated to be contiguous with the adjacent plaza, but it is confined by a bollarded condition so that slow cars will understand that it's a pedestrian forward space. Owners. Okay, sorry. I was trying to remember the second question. We've actually had one significant public meeting with them. This is actually my scratch, is the red documentation. We've been, in this particular case, we called in folks essentially by block, so that we could work, they could meet their neighbors for one, that they would work with us independently, meaning that each owner had an opportunity to speak with us and express their concerns without their neighbors being present, but also then in conjunction with their neighbors, so that each could hear the other. The goal being that active listening on our part and with each other would facilitate a commonality towards success. We have been working with them strategically to ensure, as I said, that we would do no harm. The idea is either to leave things as they are or to improve them, but never to purposefully stymie them in their ownership. So that's a very high level. I would say that we heard also from apartment renters and apartment owners who, particularly around the Navy Memorial, expressed their love of the dynamism and relative cacophony of the city, but didn't want a lot of big events happening immediately in front of them. So that has also helped us frame what we think about John Marshall Park versus what we think about the Navy Memorial area. So this is the nature of working in a very diverse urban context. Active listening becomes incredibly important and threading that needle of design intent so that everybody sees success.
And I would just add to that we've been very grateful to the Downtown DC bid for helping facilitate these conversations with the property owners. Our dialogue so far is really focused on operational requirements, verifying where they need to load and where they need access to things like parking garages. And of course, we will continue to be in dialogue with them as direct properties on the avenue and important stakeholders, but also during the public process, they'll be invited to weigh in.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the good question, Commissioner Cozart. Are there any other questions from commissioners online or in the chamber? Hearing none, we will move now on to discussion of this project. I'm going to start deliberations with Commissioner Stidham.
Thank you. And thank you for all of the hard work. We have been participating and really are quite proud of how things are moving along and the amount of consideration being made as part of the project. In thinking about improvements to the city and the city becoming a more beautiful space, this really ties right into that, improving this as the, America's Main Street as it's to be. Right now it's a little underwhelming, I'd say. If you hear all this hype about Pennsylvania Avenue and then you show up and you're just like, wow, okay, now where am I going? So this really provides an opportunity to make this a great space again. So thank you for your efforts.
Thank you, Commissioner Stidham. Commissioner Argo. I think you're. Oh, there you go.
I have no additional questions. I think this is exciting, and look forward to the continued development. I appreciate the attention that the team is paying to a number of the aspects that they talked to us about today, and the consultation with residents and neighbors as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Argo. Vice Chair Hewlett.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentations. This is tremendously exciting. I echo the comments of my colleagues thus far. I think you're balancing so many interests, so it's very complicated. That's very, very clear. Yet you're doing it, and I just hope to be around to see it all come to fruition. Thank you so much.
Me too.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hewlett. And now we'll hear from Commissioner Tunstall-Williams.
Yes, thank you for the presentation, and many of my comments are already reflected in here. So I'd like to thank the staff and the design team, all the consultants that have been a part of this, for your sort of openness to hearing feedback. We've had very, very robust conversation with all the different stakeholders, and your willingness to sort of respond to feedback when we push back and say, hey, what are you thinking? Okay. And honestly, just your excitement and engagement and the sense of awe, maybe is the right word, that you bring to this. And I think that at the end of the day, we'll have a really great project that I hope we can find some sort of implementing agency to put it into place. But the work has been tremendous, and I look forward to continuing the dialogue.
Thank you, Commissioner Tunstall Williams. Commissioner Cash.
Thanks so much. I did love seeing the idea of creating more of a sidewalk space in front of the FBI headquarters. I remember that being controversial a few years ago about how much like sidewalk space we should really support versus how much more envelope we should have for the buildings there. So it was great seeing that. I just want to say that I think the presentation here was great, and it's really focused on the design work. But I think that we also have to remember that a big part of this initiative, as I remember, was supposed to be talking about the governance, and that's one of the big problems that we have here. So I know if anyone's been down, so I went to the Jimmy Carter funeral, the processional that was down there. It was like you had to stand in line, go through a security gate, you got onto the street, and the whole point of a lot of these big events that we do now, they put all the security fencing up, and the priority is keeping all of those retail businesses open to the people outside of the security perimeter, but as soon as you're inside, you're cut off because of some of the security concerns we have. And it seems like we always default to those security concerns being, let's put up the fences, let's make you go through a checkpoint. So moving forward with the governance, I think it's really important to look at how we can make some of these events kind of more open. And I think that your point about this being kind of an extension of what we can do on the mall is a great thing, but it's also, I think Pennsylvania Avenue is just fundamentally a different thing. So this weekend, for anyone that's going to be down here, there's going to be the World Pride events going on, which is going to take up the whole Pennsylvania Avenue from 3rd Street all the way up to 9th Street. It's going to be mostly open, I think, but there is some of the areas that are going to be fenced, like I said, but it's just a good demonstration of kind of like the more urban DC centric, what we can be doing on Pennsylvania Avenue that just wouldn't make as much sense on the mall. So I think that looking at governance issues, looking at tying us into what already exists there, so that's not something that you'd have on the mall like the National Book Festival or something, but like something that's integrated into DC. I think that's one of the really great things about this initiative. So thanks for the ongoing work you've done, and thanks for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cash. Commissioner McGowan online.
I don't have any comments, but thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner McGowan. Commissioner Cozart.
Really appreciate the presentation and just NCPC's overall leadership as it relates to this, and want to associate myself with Commissioner Cash's comments and appreciate him for reminding us how important that is, and that we really need to start thinking about that. I do think that what we have so far in terms of designs can kind of help inspire us for the harder things that we have to do around governance, so appreciate that very much. And I also just want to appreciate the chair's very inspiring comments about how important this is of an initiative. That's all I've got.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Cozart. And it is inspiring work. And I do want to thank our staff, Karen, and thank our partners. Thank you very much, Mr. Rubin. This is the beginning of a long journey, as was just pointed out, because I do want to associate myself with Mr. Cash and Ms. Cozart's comments as well, because you do forget about the hard work of integrating real events that occur in places like Washington, D.C., and the kinds of security measures that are have taken place. And having attended some of those myself, I would agree that that's next. But right now, I just want to congratulate you on the work and on the vision and the excitement. I too think this integration is critically important. And while it is important to the mall, I'm really glad you're working with BID and working with, all the partners that are working in this project, because to be able to integrate that, I was just in town, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and again, looked at that whole Market Square view myself and thought, gosh, what a great place to have a market, and real active space and activated space. And there's so many little places you can go that would incorporate more of downtown DC into that avenue. So I'm excited about the whole damn thing. I think, there's a lot of work ahead, but there's so much excitement. And now, if you go to the Champs-Élysées, you say, you have arrived, you're there, I'm here. And it would be great to be able to say that when you're on Pennsylvania Avenue and not be in a cab, or a car, to be able to say, we're here. and feel that sense of arrival in that very special place. So looking forward to the work ahead. And again, want to congratulate, General Services Administration and the National Park Service, the district, Defense DC, and BID, and all the partners that are working on this. And we'll find the money somehow, but thank you very much for your work. And our last agenda item, we're going to have another information presentation. This is a fun meeting on the changing federal footprint. And so we have Melissa Linshaw, who's presenting today on this changing federal footprint. And this too is a very exciting opportunity. These two projects are just so inspiring, and it's really, we're looking forward to it. So Melissa, did you want to introduce your team now or at the end of your part of your presentation?
I'm going to do it at the beginning and then at the end, actually.
Okay, all right, good. Let's proceed. Thank you.
So good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. I'm happy to share an update on the Changing Federal Footprint project. Last summer, NCPC partnered with Public Buildings Reform Board, PBRB, to jointly study the opportunities to consolidate, redevelop, and dispose of federal properties adjacent to the National Mall and understand the impacts of a changing federal footprint in Washington, D.C. as part of the Changing Federal Footprint project. This is a preliminary map of opportunity properties and areas that were analyzed last year. PBRB is an independent federal agency tasked to identify opportunities for the federal government to significantly reduce its inventory of civilian real property and reduce costs. First, I'd like to introduce Paul Walden, PBRB's Executive Director, to say a few words before my presentation.
Thank you, Melissa, and good afternoon, Commission. My honor to be here. Again, Paul Walden, I'm the Executive Director of the Public Buildings Reform Board. And we were, just so you understand, we were established by special legislation in 2016, and we are tasked, as Melissa said, to identify underutilized properties that can be sold or consolidated to reduce the overall cost to the American taxpayer. And evidently, Congress is very appreciative of our work because just recently they extended us to another year and a half. We were supposed to sunset last month, but Congress has demonstrated their great faith in us to do another round of recommendations. And one thing I always like to make clear, the board is an independent commission, essentially. We are not involved in making decisions on terminating any agency missions, reductions of personnel, or moving agencies out of DC. We're an independent bipartisan board of 6 people appointed by the president with a very diverse background in congressional leadership, agency administration, and private sector real estate. In the recommendations we've made to date, we have a strong financial feasibility analysis supporting those decisions, and they're also feasible in terms of agency relocations. In our last round of recommendations, which were just approved by OMB 2 weeks ago, identified 11 properties. 3 of them are up there on the map. But overall, they'll result in $5.4 billion in savings to the taxpayer. And last year, when we started looking at the NCR portfolio in particular, we realized there's a perfect timing now with the real estate market conditions as they were, and the fact that a lot of these buildings were vastly underutilized, to actually look at, repurposing some of these buildings, putting them back on the tax rolls, and reducing the overall government cost. So the board, we're not urban planners, but we look to the experts who are NCPC to sort of look at what we can do to sort of review the potential of some of these sites, and also through our partnership with HR&A to what sort of governance structure would continue our work once we do sunset in December of next year. So as a result, NCPC brought in the Urban Land Institute to conduct a TAP study, in which the results were briefed just a couple of weeks ago. And we received, I think, a very resounding positive response from the media, from all the articles I've seen and all the phone calls I've received. So there's a lot of interest in what we're doing. And again, we looked at the Forrestal building as really being that keystone to sort of re-energize that southwest area. And again, thanks to Mr. Acosta and his staff for supporting us, and we look forward to a continued partnership with NCPC. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. The scale of dispositions in this area south of the mall that have been discussed over the last 8 months is unprecedented, as shown on the map. It presents an enormous opportunity for the nation's capital and Washington, D.C. In 2024, PBRB and NCPC began meeting to understand how both of our interests and goals could come together. The partnership, as Paul mentioned, began working with the Urban Land Institute of Washington, ULI. ULI Washington brings access to thought leadership and impartial and market-driven feedback from the private sector. Together, we outlined the following: host a series of focus group discussions, a technical assistance panel TAP, and a public forum around the topic, changing the federal footprint. This all helped inform PBRB's second round of submission, which did include the Forrestal building, as Paul mentioned, for disposition, and OMB has now accepted. Let me share a little bit more on these key events over the last year and how they implement planning work that NCPC has done in this area. ULI Washington, in partnership with NCPC and PBRB, organized a series of 4 focus groups in November of 2024 with key stakeholders from the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. Each group focused on one of 4 topics related to the changing federal footprint in the National Capital Region: economic development, identification of potential opportunity sites and new catalysts, historic preservation, open space infrastructure needs, implementation strategies, and managing organizational structure. 4 themes came from the discussions over the 2 days listed here on the screen. I'd like to emphasize the first one: there must be a phased disposition schedule for federal properties. NCPC has advocated for dramatic changes to this area south of the National Mall for decades. One key example is NCPC's Southwest Eco District Plan from 2013, which guides property disposal, reuse, redevelopment, and infrastructure planning. A vision of south of Independence Avenue is shown on the top left image. The linchpin to implementing this vision is the James V. Forrestal Building, also known as the U.S. Department of Energy DOE headquarters, or the Forrestal Complex. PBRB and NCPC made a very deliberate decision to focus the TAP on the Forrestal Complex and sponsor this TAP to connect ongoing planning studies in Southwest Washington with efforts to identify federal assets for disposal. In February 2025, ULI assembled a TAP to develop a roadmap for redevelopment of the Forrestal Building, shown in the bottom left image. The Forrestal Complex is a 3-building brutalistic structure constructed in 1969 at 1000 Independence Avenue Southwest. It's outlined in green on the map on the right side of the screen. The Forrestal Complex has 1.8 million rentable square feet and sits on 11 acres. LaFont Plaza, or 10th Street Southwest, bisects the study area, terminating to the north at Independence Avenue Southwest and the Smithsonian Castle, and to the south at Banneker Park, overlooking the Southwest waterfront. During the first day, the panelists received the assignment, took a tour of the building and surrounding area, had stakeholder group discussions, and then worked together to come up with a strategy, which they presented at the end of day 2. The sponsor team presented the panel with a briefing book that gave them background information as well as the TAP goals and key questions to consider. The TAP goals, shown here, focus on making sure what they produced was financially viable, have a flexible timeline, identified key stakeholders, and made sure the redevelopment could unlock additional redevelopment within the monumental core. To achieve the TAP goals, the panelists also had some questions to answer to help formulate their plan and strategy. The goals and questions came mostly from discussions that happened in the fall with the focus groups. We really wanted to make sure that everything analyzed was data-driven and helped achieve goals from all stakeholders. Speaking of stakeholders, this is a comprehensive list of stakeholders that were engaged with during the TAP. Again, wanting to get the full picture of what could happen with this site. The panel, shown in the photo here, recognized that the study area presents a unique and timely opportunity to become a gateway between the Southwest waterfront and the National Mall, with realization of the opportunity hinging on the redevelopment of the Forrestal Building. To guide its deliberations, the panel first created a roadmap of 5 major activities that would be required to fully maximize the redevelopment potential of the Forrestal Building and its surrounding submarket. You can see them listed on the screen, and now I'll walk through the 5. The panel discussed 4 options for the DOE headquarters. Option 1, status quo, keeping DOE in place. The panel rejected this option, as have PBRB and the White House in their recent approvals to sell the building. Option 2, constructing a new headquarters, and this was deemed too costly and not necessary given the amount of unused office space on the market and also in the federal inventory. Option 3 and option 4, relocating to existing federal space or leased space, were seen as viable options. These have the potential to provide long-term cost savings to taxpayers and provide modern and efficient spaces for DOE employees. Next, the panel looked at the site potential and making it a gateway to the waterfront. The panel recommended a coordinating entity to champion the redevelopment of the Forrestal complex and the adjacent areas in the Southwest, with a key focus on guiding the disposition and redevelopment process of federal assets. This entity does not necessarily have to be a new agency or authority. The panel also recommends an MOU with expectations and agreements for development. There are several issues to address in determining the site potential as listed on the screen, including identifying desired cultural uses, infrastructure needs, Virginia Avenue question, which I'll touch on later, and resolving inflated assessments. Also listed are the key stakeholders that would need to be involved in the process. I wanted to share that during the winter, NCPC had Perkins and Will work on renderings of a reimagined area south of the National Mall. The renderings build on past planning efforts and will be updated as additional planning for the area takes place. As the previous slide discussed, there will be some topics that will need to be resolved during the MOU and entitlement process, one of them being infrastructure needs and expanding the right-of-way. This rendering showcases public space along the extended C Street Southwest right-of-way from 10th Street, looking west from the Forrestal building, currently where the cafeteria sits. The next stop on the roadmap is the transaction and redevelopment. The panel recognized that one possibility would be to divest at least a portion of the site for public benefit users, including cultural institutions such as the Smithsonian, health care organizations, universities, or nonprofits. The panel recommended that the intended public benefit user be identified during the pre-disposition process. Based on prior studies, the panel proposed a redevelopment program for the Forrestal complex totaling 3.7 million square feet, with uses likely to succeed based on current market factors. As you see on the graphic, the redevelopment would consist of residential, museum, cultural, hotel, office, and retail. The panel recognized there is a possibility that redevelopment of the Forrestal complex into a 3.7 million square feet mixed-use project is not financially viable on its own, as a variety of factors, as listed on the screen, can escalate costs beyond the level that the project can work or be viable without public financing assistance. The redevelopment efforts could potentially be financed publicly with the district government or the federal government, or with the use of creative financing tools or a combination of funding sources. The panel also looked at new versus conversions as well, and determined that the existing building does not fully occupy the site and the current layout of the building does not work well for residential. So conversion is not viable. The panel also looked at the northwest corner of the site as basis for much of their analysis. The last stop on the roadmap answered the question, what will be the catalytic impact? Based on the panel's proposed redevelopment program, it projected the Forrestal complex would contribute $45.3 million in annual tax revenue at full build-out. The panel compared the site and study area to the Capitol Riverfront bid, as it presents many similarities, and they had access to the data around that. Once the Forrestal complex is redeveloped, the panel anticipated an impact on development in Southwest, including the disposition and redevelopment of other federal assets, resulting in a net increase of 1.9 million square feet and $150.9 million in new tax revenue. On May 22nd, ULI Washington with NCPC and PBRB hosted a public forum for over 200 people who gathered on top of the Spy Museum with views of the Forrestal building. Norman Dong moderated the event, where 3 of the panelists presented the findings of the TAP, and then had a catalytic impact discussion with NCPC's Diane Sullivan, Steve Moore with the Southwest bid, and consultant Andrew Trueblood, former DC planning director. The TAP report was also released that day, and you can find the full report on our website at ncpc.gov. One of the main discussion points at the public forum was the uncertainty regarding which streets need to be reintroduced, and this impacts the overall value of development. For example, the panel debated whether the value of reintroducing Virginia Avenue, as shown on the plans on the left side of this slide, and then ultimately the panel thought the impact of development by square footage was too great and supported a plan similar on the right side without Virginia Avenue. This issue and questions regarding historic preservation will need to be addressed for all of the sites the federal government is planning on selling. This is a rendering showing the potential if Virginia Avenue were to be introduced and what the gateway and viewshed would look like. Washington is extremely fortunate to having such incredible viewsheds from the LaFont plan, but we also need to have discussions about what is feasible. Lastly, the panel recommended developing an updated vision plan for the Southwest planning area that builds upon the NCPC's Southwest Eco District Plan. In terms of next steps, NCPC is excited to move quickly with local and federal partners to better determine property entitlements for land and buildings that the federal government wants to dispose of in Southwest DC, creating certainty and maximizing value for the federal government, and also ensuring that the private redevelopment of federally disposed land south of the National Mall and directly across the street from the National Mall is of the highest quality and respectful of its location in the heart of the nation's capital. This rendering is showing how the 10th Street transformation could really connect the waterfront to the mall. As I said at the beginning of my presentation, NCPC has advocated for dramatic changes to the area south of the National Mall for decades, and we're excited to be working with our federal partners in the district to make this area a place where people want to visit and live. This partnership with PBRB and ULI Washington was very successful, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Gail Fisher from PBRB, Mark Gazda with ULI Washington, and Will Rich from Calvary Real Estate Advisors, as well as the NCPC team. Thank you. And with that, I would like to invite Norman Dong, the panel chair, to say a few words. Norman has experience not only in the private sector real estate, but also served as commissioner for GSA's Public Building Service and in OMB as a controller. Norman also serves as the chair of the Federal Real Property Association. Thank you, Norm.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Madam Chair, members of the commission. I am thrilled to be here. First, I wanted to start just by expressing my gratitude and appreciation to NCPC and the PBRB for sponsoring the ULI TAP on the Forrestal building. As you saw, and for those of you who are with us at the public forum, we had a great group of panelists, including Katie Crystal and Josh Olson and Vicki Davis. And for anybody who knows those folks, you know that they bring a significant amount of energy and enthusiasm, as well as subject matter expertise to the conversation. And as Melissa was saying, our charge was to consider the redevelopment potential of the Forrestal site. And it really is where we are today. You've got to step back and think about kind of this moment in time, because we've been having this conversation about what to do with the Forrestal building for a while now, right? I think it began with the Southwest Eco District Plan back in 2013. And even as recently as last year, Diane and I were on a panel over at the arena stage, kind of thinking about, all right, why are we not moving forward on issues like the Forrestal building? What can we do to get the federal government to be more proactive in disposing of some of these underutilized federal assets? And here we are today. And the world has changed dramatically over the past 12 months. There's been a lot of conversation, a lot in the news about how this administration has got a little bit more spring in their step in terms on this issue of underutilized federal buildings. And you're seeing examples of GSA moving far more assertively on this question to dispose of underutilized assets. So the panel was charged with not just looking at the Forrestal site and the redevelopment potential of those 11 acres, but really considering the question of how Forrestal can serve as a proof of concept for redeveloping other underutilized properties, particularly in Southwest DC. And for us, and for all of us, it really is thinking about, okay, how do we maximize the redevelopment potential of Forrestal, but also how do we capitalize on this opportunity to have much more of a neighborhood transformation impact? So we think about the 2 days that we spent together as a panel. Job one for us was to think about what you do with the Department of Energy headquarters. And I think as you look back at the conversations that we've been having for more than a decade on redeveloping the Forrestal site, the conversation has largely gone nowhere because we could never figure out what to do with the Department of Energy. And the conversation would often go to, well, you need to get Congress to appropriate a lot of money to build a new Department of Energy headquarters. And when you think about what that would cost, anywhere between $750 million to $1 billion, that becomes a showstopper. And you think about how difficult it is for the federal government to get capital funds to renovate and modernize any of the buildings that we see here in the National Capital Region. And then when you talk about the FBI headquarters and what that costs, then you talk about, okay, we need another $1 billion for the Department of Energy. We don't live in that world where Congress is appropriating billions of dollars for new federal buildings or to modernize and upgrade existing federal buildings. So we had to take much more of a practical approach to say, all right, if you've got to live within your existing budget, what do you do to solve this problem? So as Melissa talked about, we looked at 4 different options. Status quo was not an option. Constructing a new, smaller facility we looked at, but again, that comes with a big price tag as well. So then we looked at 2 other options. One was relocating to existing federally owned buildings. And there's been a lot of conversation about how these federally owned buildings are significantly underutilized. And then we also talked about potentially moving to a lease. And I think the Department of Transportation, the Security and Exchange Commission, those are examples of cabinet entities or independent agencies that are in not owned space, but lease space. So I think the precedent has been set where not every agency has to be in a federally owned building. So we thought, wait, maybe we could do that as well. And granted, when you look at the existing lease inventory in Washington, D.C., you don't have a single large block of space that could handle the entire Department of Energy requirement, but you could split it up. And I think we've seen examples with the Department of Justice, for example, where you don't have to put everybody in one building. You can spread them, different functions in different buildings, and it makes it an easier space problem to resolve. So I think the headline for us is, if you have to live within existing budget constraints, there are ways to solve for this headquarters requirement that we may not have fully recognized in the past. And if we're serious about redeveloping the Forrestal site, then we're going to take a closer look and give more serious consideration to those other options. Okay, so as I said, it's not just about redeveloping the Forrestal site. It really is achieving the full potential of what Southwest DC can and should be. And as we look at the properties that are slated for disposition in Southwest DC, you've got the HUD headquarters, you've got the Liberty Loan Building, you've got the Wilbur Cohen Building, you've got the former regional headquarters for GSA at 301 7th Street Southwest. Got like 5 different buildings that have already been slated for disposal. How do we avoid a situation where GSA is just simply dumping these properties on the market? And I think there was consensus among us that we want a thoughtful redevelopment plan that sequences the redevelopment of these sites over time. And we kind of look back to the past and we saw Southeast Federal Center as being kind of a model for what we might want to do here. So as we think about kind of the path forward, there's some planning activities, and Melissa talked about kind of the planning work between NCPC and the DC Office of Planning that has already begun here. But I think there's also a conversation with GSA that needs to take place, where you're looking at the proposed vision and the proposed reuse of these sites, and you're thinking about potential transaction structures that might make sense here that would allow for a thoughtful development sequence over time. There's been a lot of conversation about disposition and focus on selling the property. Well, maybe we could do that, but maybe there are other transaction structures like a ground lease, for example. There are examples where the federal government didn't sell a property but did a ground lease instead, or some other transfer of administrative control that may allow for a more thoughtful, holistic approach to sequence the redevelopment of these properties over time and to maximize the neighborhood transformation potential and impact, as we saw on the Capitol Riverfront with the Southeast Federal Center. So I think we've got a clear path forward on the planning side and on the federal engagement side. And again, think about where we are today. I think it really is, you should take a moment to celebrate the progress that has been made. Some of us were a little bit doubtful of whether we'd ever get here in our lifetime, but I think, I'm feeling energized and inspired in terms of where we are today and where this could go. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Norm, and appreciate your input. And also thank you, Paul, and thank you as well. We really appreciate everything that you've done, Melissa, on this project and all the work that's gone into it with our partners. So with that, I'm going to ask, are there any questions for our speakers now from the commissioners online or in person? Any questions? Hearing none, we're going to move on then with deliberations, and I'm going to begin with Commissioner Tunstall Williams.
Okay. Well, I've had sort of a front row seat for all of this for many, many years and agree with Norm that there's been a lot of conversation and everyone's focused on this Forrestal site. And I will say when we started this back in the fall, I don't think any of us could have imagined the momentum that this would take on with the current administration. And so I think that is great. And to PBRB's great credit to continuing to push it. I still have great concern that the complexity of getting particularly the Department of Energy out of that site in a timely manner to allow the momentum to keep going. I think I'm very concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the huge infrastructure costs that it will take to remove the building and prepare those parcels for development. So I think to the extent that PBRB can continue to push and NCPC to build those connections, the district, this is going to take everyone to make this happen. And I think right now we are at this critical point that the momentum is there and I don't want to lose it. So what all of us, how we can partner to move that forward is good. I do also have concern, as Norm said, a lot of the other buildings that we're talking about are moving faster than this one. And I worry that if they get too far ahead, there could be a glut and then the interest in the Forrestal site might diminish. So I think that the phasing is very important. And so the advocacy that you can do with GSA leadership, certainly way above me, is important because I think the long-term impacts on the district and the partnership that GSA can bring shouldn't be detrimental if we get too far ahead. So looking to everyone to kind of support those efforts. But otherwise, I think it's a great project. I look forward to, fingers crossed, something actually happening.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Tunstall Williams. Commissioner Cash, please.
Great, thanks. So I mean, one of the things I think we forget about sometimes is whenever the Smithsonian comes here to talk to us about a new museum site, we bang our heads against this dais for days and days and days saying, why do you want to take this piece of land? We will give them empty land for free. But when it comes to something like one of these buildings, they have to pay for it and all this stuff. So I mean, if there's any way we can come up with some new regime where anything north of C Street, it's just an automatic, we're going to give it to the Smithsonian. If we're going to extend them all, we're going to modify the eco district to bring them all down there and get them all the space they will ever need. So I think the economics, especially what's going on in DC right now, I mean, we're not going to build another wharf. We're not going to build another Capitol Riverfront down there. We don't have enough commercial office space right now to support what we need here. So I think in light of a lot of what's gone on the last year and in light of the Smithsonian coming to us every couple of years for a new museum and us just going crazy. I think that there's a tremendous opportunity. We didn't talk about agriculture yet, but especially right there on the mall. But I mean, extending that mall down, I think that there's a tremendous opportunity if we can get out of the mindset of we're selling this building like it's a commercial development project. This is already federal land. We have a lot of uses for it down there. So I think that the changing the paradigm down there and really, I know you're partnering with Smithsonian, but see if we can do it to even more of an extent and solve their problems for the next 100 years. I think that that's a tremendous opportunity that we couldn't miss if we think about this in too much of a market-driven economics. So that's my 2 cents, but I really thank the team for all the work that's been going on this. I think it's really exciting regardless to reimagine these large swaths of DC land and what could become of it if we kind of taper it down as a federal interest. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cash. Commissioner McGowan.
I have no questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner McGowan. Commissioner Cozart.
Thanks for the presentation. I really thank the NCPC team because this has been, you all have had to shift very much. Like a conversation about the federal footprint, 18 months ago was completely different, and the things that we were looking at were completely different. So appreciate how entrepreneurial you all have been and kind of building partnerships, and both entrepreneurial and also strategic. So appreciate that. And I too am hopeful that this, what came out of the tap can be a blueprint, and really appreciate the support for the kind of phased disposition approach and strategy that is really, really important to the district. And so appreciate alignment and consensus around that.
Thank you, Commissioner Cozart. Commissioner Stidham.
I cannot agree with Commissioner Cash more. Every memorial sponsor that I work with, I pitch this area. No one will bite. They can't see a vision. They can't be the first ones to take that leap. So having this study that shows the potential and the potential for the building to change or move and open up the extension of the mall with the commemorative works acts and the reserve being complete, we need to extend the mall. And this is an opportunity, and it's a space for Smithsonian. It's a space for memorial sponsors. It can be a great connection.
Mm-hmm.
We just need someone to see that vision and take the chance. And I know any memorial sponsor that is listening is like tired of hearing me say this, but it is a huge opportunity and it's a great space. So really appreciate this work and showing a vision and the potential. I think it goes a long way, and hopefully we'll continue that momentum. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stidham. Commissioner Argo, are you still online?
I'm coming. Here I am.
Okay, we're here.
I appreciate very much the presentation. I love Commissioner Stidham's comments and would align myself with them. And it's not just a matter of vision. It's a matter of resources and logistics. And I just hope we, I don't know how much we can be a part of it, but I hope we can move the forces together to make some of the things happen that we were provided with today, that, the vision and the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Argo. Vice Chair Hewlett.
Yes, thank you so very much for the presentation, Ms. Linshaw and Mr. Dong and Mr. Walden. Appreciate it, and for our NCPC team for working so very hard on this. I too would like to associate myself with the comments of Commissioner Cash and Commissioner Stidham about the museums, the Smithsonian museums, and it's referenced in the report from the TAP report from February of 2025. I understand that the concern was the market value, the fair market value to some extent, and but that can be waived perhaps. But it just makes sense. It just makes sense. You're so right that the Smithsonian comes to us on a regular basis. There's a new museum proposed, and they're all worthwhile. But we're so limited on the space, and this is opportunity knocking, and I think we should find a way to seize it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hewlett. And I just want to thank again NCPC staff. Thank you very much, Melissa. Paul, thank you for bringing your partnership, and Norm, thank you for bringing your expertise. I mean, for continuing to contribute to this place we call the Capitol, and it's a big job. I also want to recognize Marcel, because it was months and months ago when Marcel first suggested to me, your leadership is and you're just invaluable. I just want to say that, Marcel. We don't ever thank you for a hell of a great job you do. But you said, look at this building, and I said, oh, I know this building because we come and visit Department of Energy every year, and it's kind of a nightmare building of all the buildings. It's one of a few, I will say, in terms of the interface that the person coming to the building has. You know, their top secret floors on the top, and you're running around in these hallways that look like a labyrinth out of the Matrix, you know, and it really is, it's time to go. And the space and the real estate is so powerfully located and situated for other purposes. So I guess with every new administration, there are new blessings and new challenges. And this new administration is not without those. And certainly the opportunity is there. I think, you know, we have to find those opportunities, you know, to see a path forward to reuse this space and to perhaps do something different in that location. And it finds its a similarity, this plan, I think, to the Pennsylvania Avenue plan, in that it's trying to bring this all together to incorporate downtown into Pennsylvania Avenue and all these other nodes and opportunities. But the same for the that beautiful visual we have of a view shed that could be, you know, what the Forest Hall building blocks right now, into to the wharf, but also to the Smithsonian Capitol. That's another powerful node that I think can be redeveloped. Now, I have to say that Commissioner Stidham, or yes, Commissioner Tunstall Williams brings me right down to reality. And I think that's, you know, so no, but you know, you work with it every day. It's like you're living and breathing it. So I don't know what the answers are, but I hope, as we talked about again many times in our strategic planning as a commission, that NCPC with its partners, not alone, but with our partners, could be thought leaders in some of these areas. And there's no better time than now in America to be thought leaders. And I think that's, you know, it's a possibility now, perhaps, but at the same time, it's not going to come without hard work. So we should try, is my opinion. So I just, again, want to thank all of those who participated and look at this as an opportunity for a generational reevaluation and re-envisioning of the capital city. And so I'm just grateful to all of those who took part in this. I'm grateful, especially Marcel, for your leadership, because I know that you've been looking at this and imagining things for some time. So with that, are there any further comments or questions? Hearing none. This concludes our open session for June, and our next regular commission meeting will be Thursday, July 10th. So not on the week of the 4th. It's going to be on July 10th at 1 p.m. And August is our month off. So we have a big meeting, I'm sure, that was planned for us, Diane, next month, but we'll be ready. So thank you all. And if there's no further business, this meeting stands adjourned.